If you haven't joined us before for a Lunch and Learn, these are brief sessions that deal with dementia and Alzheimer's, our Pat Head Summitt grant. And we often have speakers, and today our speaker is Patsy Carson. She has a personal journey with Alzheimer's. And today she's going to relate to all of you that personal journey. Many of our caregivers and people involved in our support groups often feel isolated and lonely because they feel others don't understand what they're going through. But today, Patsy will encourage, motivate you, and be very truthful about her story. So I'd like to introduce Patsy Carson to you. Patsy, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm excited. Okay, she's introduced me. I was going to introduce myself. I'm Patsy Carson. I was married to Johnny Carson, not the one on late night TV, and I was a caregiver for very many years. My husband, Johnny, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in the year 2000, and he passed away in 2011. We were married for 51 years. But the thing, if you have dealt with someone with Alzheimer's, you know that something is wrong before the diagnosis comes through. I remember, for example, this man, I could not believe it the whole time we were married. He knew every cow trail, back road, path, interstate, little roads in the whole world, I thought. And every time we went to Knoxville, we'd go a different way through a barnyard. You just never knew. But then one night we went to see a movie at the Downtown West Theater. And when we started to leave, he was turning right on the wrong way. It was a one-way street. And I said, no, you're going the wrong way. And he looked at me and he said, in all sincerity, I don't know where in the hell I am. And I said, well, just go right. And when you see Westtown, you will know where you are and we can get home that way. And it was interesting because after that, he was always the driver. And after that, I noticed that he would go get in the passenger seat when we were going somewhere. And that was highly unusual. And gradually, things began to change. First, he couldn't find his billfold. And then I would search and search and search and search. Then he couldn't find his car keys. Then he lost his credit card, and I had to change that. So I took credit cards out of his billfold. And finally, one day, he was in Madisonville, and he couldn't remember where he parked his car. And anyone who's dealt with Alzheimer's can add story after story after story after story. And something happened one day, and I called Josh Gettinger, and I said, we need to see you right this second. And we walked in, and I was telling him what had happened. And he said, Johnny, I'm going to tell you 3 things in this office, the doctor's office. And he said, then I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to tell me what those 3 things are. Personally, Alzheimer's had just never crossed my mind. And he had said, what's the date? And Johnny told him. Who's the president? Johnny told him. He asked him all these questions, and he answered them correctly. And then he said, Johnny, what were those 3 things in the office that I told you to remember? He could not remember one of them. And my heart sank to my toes. And after that, we participated in a study, an Alzheimer's group at Baptist Hospital in Knoxville for several years. But the thing I want to point out now to people who are dealing with Alzheimer's, millions of boomers are caring for their parents with a disease that takes away their mind, takes away their memories. Spouses, as myself, are caring for mates that you've loved and you've spent 40 or 50 years with. We sit next to them. They don't even remember our names. I remember somebody told me one day that they went to see Johnny at the nursing home. He was there for 10 months after he could no longer walk. And they said, Johnny knew who I was. I said, hell no, he didn't. He doesn't know me. I said, but if the floor sweeper walks into his room, he'll say, hey, yeah. He does that to everybody that walks in. Johnny never changed his personality. He was always sweet. But they have no idea where we met, if we have children, even if they've eaten, or who we are. And the thing that I realized pretty quickly after it began to go down, it's a job 24/7. It's constantly we have to watch them, because I was afraid that he might wander off. And that happened at my house one day when I had someone watching Johnny for a few hours. I knew how to watch him, and they just said, I'm going to go in and make you a sandwich and I'll be back. He could barely shuffle, but he wandered off and got lost. And when I got home, they called me and I rushed home. And the dogs were out, the helicopters were out, everybody who had a scanner was sitting on the road, and we found him. But that's just how quickly something can happen. My Johnny was diagnosed at age 67. So that's young, I think. But remember, I had known something was off when he started losing the billfolds and the keys and the credit cards. But when we went in for the test and it was named, this is Alzheimer's, I was so totally overwhelmed. With other diseases, if you go in and you've had a stroke, you've had a heart attack, or they find cancer, there's a progression and there's a treatment and there's a positive outcome many times. But with Alzheimer's, I think it hits 2 times. First, their mind dies with the simplest of tasks, such as feeding themselves and dressing themselves and bathing themselves or putting on clothes. It becomes an insurmountable task. And then the body dies, and victims become unable to walk, to swallow, and they gradually sink into a coma and finally death. And I read a lady who said, this life can be described as a funeral that never ends. And I read that and I thought, that's so true. And I was thinking to myself, I want my husband back. So that lady wasn't totally alone. And now, if you read the statistics, we're all living longer. I'm going to be 84 on my birthday. And the incidences of all types of dementia is rising sharply. I read this on the Alzheimer's Association page that more than 5 million people are dealing with Alzheimer's today. And it's the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. This is the scary part. Around 70% of them live at home, and they're cared for by a son or a daughter, or like myself, a spouse. And the time between diagnosis and death, they told me at Baptist, could be anywhere from 1 year to 18. Mine was actually 11 years after the diagnosis, but remember, I had known something before. And research shows, this goes back to the caregiver that we talked about, that living with the uncertainty is a major reason that the stress is so much worse than other diseases. The doctors gave me a book, and it was titled The 36-Hour Day. And it is a 36-hour day. And they told me at the point, said, don't read any farther than you are in the disease at this point, because we don't want you to get any more stressed out. And the things that I learned early in the disease didn't have any use for me in the later stages. So that was a good reason not to go any farther. Because at first I could say, Johnny, tell me about when you were a little boy. Where did you go to school? Tell me about grandmother and grandfather. And later on in life, he couldn't do those things. And another, the way things go downhill, I remember the very first time that Johnny was incontinent. Hopefully, it could have happened here at the house. It never happened. But we were eating out at a nice restaurant. And I looked down when he stood up. He had just wet the whole booth. You can imagine an adult. His pants were wet. What do? You walk out with him in wet pants. You apologize to the restaurateur and tell them that they need to clean the booth. And you go the next day and you buy some Depends. And so just little things like that. I didn't know that was going to happen, but it did. Now I want to talk about support groups. I it was so hard, and I found a support group in Athens. So I had to drive all the way to another county. So I hope that we'll be able to get one here if COVID is ever over. But I had a friend whose husband had died with Alzheimer's. She was my rock. She helped me more than I could ever tell you in words. For example, I was talking to her about how tired I was. I said, Johnny keeps me awake all night long. I said, he can't get out of the bed anymore, but he doesn't sleep well, and he'll stir and try to get up. And she looked me in the eye and she said, Patsy, what is the very worst thing that could happen if you went into another room to get a good night's sleep? Because she said, you'll be a better caregiver the next day if you get some sleep. And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. I said, I guess he could fall out of the bed and hurt himself. And she looked at me and she said, he can do that even if you're in the room with him. You go get some rest. So I did, and he didn't fall out of the bed, and I was more rested, but I could not have done that if she hadn't been my support. And the one thing that I had that many do not, I wasn't trying to balance caregiving while working full-time. Many daughters and sons have to do that, but at least I didn't have to get up and go to work and try to balance that. But even doing the best you can, I often had negative thoughts. Is this my fault? Am I doing all I can do? What can I do better? Did I cause this? It just goes on and on and on. And then I began to think, you've got to take care of some things, because when the patient can no longer participate in his or her care, you need to talk to them early on about what are their decisions about her care. Do they want to stay at home? Do they want to go? Nobody wants to go to a nursing home, I'm sure. And but before the things get so bad, those things need to be taken care of. This is an example of what happened one time, how other people don't understand. Johnny and I were visiting our niece in Asheville, and she thought he was with me, and I thought he was talking to her, and her guest bedroom was downstairs. And the floor was a house that had a cellar that was built in. And he followed me with unbeknownst to me, and he had a fall down a full flight of stairs. I couldn't tell if he'd broken anything. He couldn't tell me if he'd broken anything. So we took him to the hospital, and the intake person, he looked great, said to him, how bad is your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? I looked at the intake person. I said, he has Alzheimer's. He can't do that. Then the intake person pulled out that little strip with all the faces from the smile to the frown. He said, looking at these, where's your pain level? I looked at the intake person. I said, he still has Alzheimer's. He cannot understand numbers. He can't understand those faces. So that's the kind of thing we have to deal with. As it turned out, he had done some damage to his shoulder, but he couldn't tell them that. But I want to get away from the negative, and I want to talk about getting a support group here if we ever get through the COVID. Support groups, I can't say enough good things. They provide aid to their members. Remember, I had to drive all the way to McMinn County, but the emotional and the social support helped ease my stress. The stress done by, according to a study done at university, demonstrates that the mere feeling of being supported and understood has a greater impact on reducing caregiver stress than any amount of actual outside help you receive. It's just the being understood. My children hired a babysitter, I called it, but a person to come sit with Johnny 2 mornings a week to give me a break and some away time. But unbeknownst to them, that was another stressor for me. It was a task just to plan what to do on a schedule, because you and me in real time, if I'm sitting here and I want to run over to Walmart and get something, I just jump in the car and go. But the support group understood that it's another task. So it's an educational forum that we can learn from each other. For example, I was saying at the support group one night that I was so concerned, and it was hard to keep up with Johnny even in the house, that he was going to get away. And she said, well, guess what I did? She said, on the screen doors on the porch, I put one of those little latches that slide at the top. Said my husband never looked up. So I had my son come and put me the little latches at the top, and it worked. So support groups help us. And participants work through all stages of the involvement. And as trust grows between you, you begin to share and discuss and talk about your feelings and your needs. And it helps us to resolve the problems and conflicts. And I think that's the goal of support groups. And my hope is that we can get one going here. And the size makes a big difference. Our particular group was relatively small, maybe 10 to 14 people. And so we built trust very quickly. And we heard stories that were similar. And we found solutions that helped each other. And so it's the time of socialization for isolated caregivers. It was interesting, and I laughed so hard. This lady, the first time I went, walked in, and she looked bedraggled, and her husband was very erect and dressed nicely. And I thought, bless his heart. And then he sat up with a big bass voice, and he said, just what is this Alzheimer's? And then the lady explained it to him that was leading the discussion. And then in a minute, he said, just what is this Alzheimer's? And I thought, she's the caregiver. He is the one that has it. And another little lady was sitting there, and she said, if I had known we weren't going out, I would not have brought my purse. And she said that about 4 times. And so you realize that what's going on. So support groups give caregivers a time before a panel of experienced people with their problems and seek solutions. And I've got some examples. It gives you a chance to share tales and things that you've discovered. And we're people with a common problem. We're not alone. And we learn to be nurses from each other. How do you bathe? How do you do this? And we learn about devices, such as the little locks at the top of the door that we can use. And we learn how to be caregivers or nurses for each other. The old saying, misery loves company, is not always correct. Going to a support group helps us to have hope. Not that there's a cure, but there are ways to solve the problems. And I've given you some of my examples: going to another room to sleep, learning about home health care, learning about legal issues, learning about safety devices, learning that it's okay to think of yourself in order, like me going to another room to sleep, in order to take care of the patient. A guide for caregivers is to early on do several things. And thank goodness I did those things. You need to deal with medical issues. I got a health care proxy, and to deal with financials. And I've got Heather's going to put up some sources, but we need to learn that Medicare doesn't care for long term. Getting a power of attorney, having a will, a safe place to keep your documents, and what are you going to do when it's no longer safe at home? And here are the things that I found online. You can go to and she will email these to you if you need them. I can't see that AOA. The Gov Elder Rights, caregivers.org, the AARP.org, eldercare.gov, medicarerights.org, the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, which is nhpco.org. There are a few helpful sites. And I want to end, and then if you have any questions, with the 10 requests for an individual with Alzheimer's. I don't remember where I got it, but it was so helpful to me, because you think, are they doing this on purpose? And here they are, and I'm going to read them to you, although I know you can read. It said, 1, be patient with me. Remember, I have an organic brain disease. It's out of my control. 2, talk to me. Even though I cannot always answer you, I can hear your voice, and sometimes I comprehend your words. Number 3, be kind to me, for each day of my life is a long and desperate struggle. Your kindness may be the most important and special event of my day. Number 4, consider my feelings, for they are still very much alive within me. Number 5, treat me with human dignity and respect, as I would gladly have treated you if our situations were reversed. Number 6, remember my past, for I was once a healthy, vibrant person full of life, love, and laughter, with abilities and intelligence. Number 7, remember my present. I am a person. I am a loving husband, wife, father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, aunt, uncle, or a dear friend for whom family and home are very important. Number 8, remember my future. Though it may seem bleak to you, I am always filled with the hope for tomorrow. Number 9, pray for me, for I am a person who lingers in the mist that drift between time and eternity. Your presence may do more for me than any other outreach of compassion that you could extend. Number 10, love me, and the gifts of love you give will be a blessing from which we will fill both of our lives with light forever. You can make a difference. If there are any questions, and Heather will mail that to you, it was very helpful to me.
Does anyone, Jennifer, you want me to unmute you?
Patsy, I am unbelievably moved. I don't have words to express. I am truly touched by everything you said, and my journeys have been different, but so many of the things that you have told us today, and especially about the energy, the help, the compassion, the support of the support group members, and what that did for you. I think so many people will hear those words and hopefully, find a support group to help them. And the other thing that I am just so, I know it from friends and I've experienced it through them, but the length of your journey, and to do both sides, the compassion, the support, the love for your husband, and on the other side, to endure, to manage, to face reality, the hardships, and the wall there. It's two very different kinds of worlds that merge in some form, but your talk today was fabulous. I truly appreciate it.
I've got to tell you one funny story. I didn't think about it just right now.
We need
for
funny.
Years, with this, Johnny was always farmer and outside, so he started picking up magnolia leaves, and magnolia trees drop a lot.
Oh yes.
And so we have a magnet on the yard. When he would fill up the wheelbarrow, I would go dump it in the ditch. And when the leaves, he started picking up locust pods from another tree. And so one day I had to get a Honda Odyssey because I couldn't get him down into a car as the disease progressed. So Barbara Arwood wanted me to drive her up to the Mass General Store to pick up some stuff she needed. And we opened the back of the Odyssey. It was full from the floor all the way to the top of the back seat with locust pods.
That's adorable. I like it. It's so cute.
And the man said, "What is that?" I said, "It looks like locust pods to me." I said, "Would you like some?" He said no.
You
So I
need
had
some
to
good mulch.
start
That,
in the car.
that is really adorable.
But it's
You
just
should write that one down.
oh goodness. But my magnolia tree's got leaves piled all the way up to it now.
I just have to say thank you for sharing the tips and the resources. I think that's what the Memory Lane Grant is all about. It's just providing resources to those who are affected and those who are providing care. And oftentimes it's overwhelming. You don't know where to start. So having a list of places to start and look and go to is very helpful. And the encouragement that you provided and the experience, it's just a reminder that we're not alone, and it's not easy, but there are people who are willing to help and encourage you and support you, and we'll get through it and we'll figure it out along the way. So I think, like you said, that's so powerful. And I think the studies that you showed or that you shared with us, kind of reiterating that just solidifies how important that is.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't know if there's any other questions. I didn't see any in the chat box. Let me just double check. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share a compliment you just received, Patsy. I got a message from Miss Tabitha, and she said that you're so eloquent and authentic and that you should write a book. And
I think you should. I think that just the story that you told us today has all elements for a small pickup book that it's not going to overwhelm anyone, but it touches almost every base.
Well, thank you very much. I'm not a talker.
That's coming from a writer too. She knows all about writing, so that's a very serious compliment.
I'm more of a group leader. I don't like to talk to give a speech.
Well, you do it very well, very well.
I think Jennifer had mentioned the opportunity of having you in front of everyone when we are able to gather again. So I know that when we're able to pull together a lunch and learn in person, we will have the blessing of hearing your story in person, and we'll be promoting that and sharing that when the time comes. But until then, what I'm going to do here in just a moment when we conclude our conversation is I will save this recording and I will upload it to our Memory Lane Facebook page, and I will also send an email out along with the attachments that you shared with us today. Those are in the group chat, so I don't know if anyone wants to access them there. They're more than welcome to. And then we'll let people know what they missed out on, because it was a wonderful story, very encouraging and uplifting. And then hopefully, they can watch it at their convenience. You never know. It may be lunchtime for some folks, or many individuals may be working or unavailable. And so I think that will provide a convenient opportunity for them to watch it whenever is good for them. So
and Heather, I just had an idea. Patsy, this was just so powerful. Maybe when things get better and we can meet in person, I'm just thinking maybe instead of a lunch and learn, we might have some kind of, simple, but some kind of simple dinner so that people who work and wouldn't be available, for lunch and learn could come, because I just see how you did it and how you spoke and all the elements you touched on. I would like to have the opportunity, to reach a broader audience. Both here and in Sweetwater, because I've been in touch recently in the last week with a minister there. I was given the name of a minister there who might be willing to head up a group there. And so you know, as we continue to bring people in, they know people and can spread the word too. But yes, I definitely want this one in person. Yes.
Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Any last words from you, Miss Patsy?
No, it's just, I want everybody to know that there is help out there, and it is a long journey,
Yes,
but
it's a long
it is what it is.
And the help is important.
And-
Well,
And the
thank
other
you.
good
Yeah.
there, I was telling somebody that you remember, you don't think it'll ever end, but then after he died in 11 and this is 19, and now I'm beginning to remember all the good stuff.
Yes,
Yes.
it takes time. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Patsy. Have a wonderful day. You look so elegant.
Okay. See ya.
Bye-bye.